All right, everybody, this is Power Move. Parker here coming at you live and hot. I hope I'm not coming in too hot. The levels seem to be okay, so we're rolling with it. But this is episode 21 of Parker and Dad. 21 episodes in the year 2021. If you were to tell me 2021 would start off worse than 2020, I would have said you're full of crap and you're lying. But here we are, Dad, in the year 2021, and I gotta say, I think we're in for a worse year than 2020 if things continue.
I don't know if it could get any worse. This is outrageous.
Oh, it can. Don't say that. Don't say that.
Unbelievable. It's hard to think that cold weather has knocked out the state of Texas and the South. Just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
And for those of you guys that don't know, this show is based in Texas. We are coming at you from Pearland, Texas. So yes, as you guys know, Reed, he does his show from Snyder, Texas. So we're all over Texas. Snyder probably got more snow, but they handled it better with the power outage and stuff like that. But the whole state of Texas, especially the Houston area, seemed like was just not ready for this winter storm. It's still cold today. I look out my window and it's in the 30s. And it's supposed to dip into the 20s tonight here in Pearland, Texas, which we're not used to at all. Yeah, see, right now, 39 degrees, still pretty cold here. We as a family had power Monday, Tuesday, all day. And then Wednesday, they decided to do these rolling power outages, and we were out of power 12 hours Wednesday. And I kid you not, Dad over there gave up in about the first 30 minutes of this no power thing. It's safe to say we're not designed for a post-apocalyptic society. As of right now, we wouldn't last a day.
Well, I went to the go-to hibernation. I got in bed, pulled the cover over my head, and said, "Wake me when it's over."
Yeah, that was our go-to move, and I got to say, I think that was probably the best move we could have done because
no one would join me. I had a bottle of Unisom and wanted to get a bottle of vodka. I thought that would help hibernation.
Yeah.
No one was willing to try.
Mom was not a fan of that continually saying that, and everyone else was just looking around. And I'm like, well, I think he's serious. If we were to bring vodka home or any kind of alcohol, it probably would have been, you'd probably still be sleeping. Who knows? But glad you're awake. Glad you're here with us. Another thing that happened this week, besides the winter storm, we'll get into it and we'll talk about who I'm pissed off at, and I'm sure it's the same as you. But I just want to say before we get into that, get into Joe Biden's response, get into some stupid Democrats doing things that I've looked up.
Wait. Joe Biden responded?
My point exactly. We'll get into all that. But first, we have a kind of a sad moment here. Rush Limbaugh has passed away at the age of 70. We knew he had lung cancer. We knew it wasn't going to be a long time until he was gone. He passed away during all this. Texas was going to hell, and then all of a sudden you check your phone, if your phone's working, and you saw that Rush Limbaugh passed away. And of course, as you would expect, a lot of hatred coming from the left. Even when he died, he pissed people off that much because he told the truth. A lot of the people on the left were saying that they were glad he's dead. Of course, a lot of people on the right and most common, decent people were showing respect. Whether you loved him or hate him, he shaped the talk radio industry, what I love to listen to. If you're listening to talk radio, you know who Rush is. Even if you like sports or whatever, you know who Rush Limbaugh is. He revolutionized talk radio. He's the reason I like doing what I do. He's the reason you listen to Rush for most part of your life. You've listened to Rush. You're the one who kind of showed me him. And so just I'll give you a moment to kind of talk about what Rush Limbaugh meant to you. And I just want to say the hate I'm seeing for him is disgusting. The man has passed away, and people still can't keep the hatred out of their mouth, which is kind of disgusting. But what did Rush Limbaugh mean to you, and what did he mean to talk radio, in your opinion? Because you were a long-time listener to the show, and I know you have some stuff to share about Rush.
Yeah, I'm looking. I think he launched his the show around 84 is what I'm saying, 83, 84, because said he's back in Kansas City. I was looking for the exact. I knew that it was during Ronald Reagan's presidency that he began the Rush Limbaugh show. It's taken a couple of different forms, but he's been on the radio that entire time. And that was the age I graduated high school in 84. You begin to pay attention to politics at that point, or some people do. I did. I remember Ronald Reagan being elected in 80. I remember his presidency and obviously the reelection. And listening to Rush Limbaugh as he came out and came on the air, and immediately said, "This guy's different." I mean, this guy is his way of telling the story has sometimes, maybe all the time, some sarcasm. The approach that he would do things. It wasn't just the. Remember, this was in the '80s, so he was the first of his kind of talk radio. Before biases or no biases, everyone tried to give straight news with this approach of being, just a newsman, where Rush came in and brought comedy, some satire, things to the radio, and but could really speak to the people and in a way that you understood what he was trying to say. And you may not always agreed with him, but you could always say, that's interesting, that's thought-provoking. And I think that was Rush's thing, is he wanted people to be engaged, wanted to challenge people, he didn't mind being challenged. He would take phone calls, probably more back then than he did in the latter years. His show evolved into where he had so much to say and always interesting. You could listen to Rush for 3 hours, even if he didn't take a phone call, and it was never the same thing. And I like that about him, and not to trash some other radio shows, but there's some very popular radio and TV hosts now that if you listened on Monday and you listened on Friday, it's the same material. Rush was never the same material. He always had something fresh. He always had something to say about what was going on, but he didn't repeat himself and didn't repeat the same things. And I just found that it was intriguing, and it probably shaped a little bit of my beliefs in politics and how I feel, because it made you challenge yourself and challenge the thoughts of the day. And I think that's how anyone should present anything. You should never present it and say, I'm right, I know that I'm right, and this is the only point of view. I'm right, I believe this, and this is why I believe it, and I'm willing to take your questions and your challenges, and I will explain to you why I think I'm right and you're not.
Wow, and a lot of people have said to me on just social media and things like that they think I am a lot like they kind of remind me of Rush Limbaugh because of how he does the humor, like you talked about, the humor, the satire. That's kind of what I want to focus on because I think a lot of people can say, oh, I'm smarter than you, and here's the facts and blah, blah, blah. But if you have humor and you have ability to make fun of yourself, he was the first to ever kind of make fun of himself, make fun of things at that level, at that stage. You'd listen to Rush Limbaugh, and whether you were a conservative or a Democrat, you'd be laughing in the car as you're driving home, and you would be informed. You'd be laughing, you'd be entertained, and you would be informed. And you may not always agree with Rush, but everything he said, he was very consequential in what he said. He said something and he backed it up 100%, and he was either wrong or he was right, but he stood by what he said. Nobody does that now in this industry and in life. Politicians definitely don't do it. They say something, then they flip-flop. Right? Rush Limbaugh, boom, he said something. He was willing to learn, but he said something and he stuck by what he said, and he would give you his reasons for it and his life experience for it. And that's another thing too, is people don't always take, you have to be humble. You have to make fun of yourself if you're going to have wisdom. Nobody wants to listen to a pompous a-hole for 3 hours. There's a lot of them out there. Pompous guys, we know, on our side of the fence, and of course, on the liberal side of the fence, we see it all the time, but they're everywhere. Rush was not like that. He was very sarcastic. He was very witty, a lot like you and me. but he was also willing to share his wisdom and be humble and say, hey, this is a life experience that didn't work out for me. I'll tell you why it didn't work out for me. I'll tell you why it doesn't work, in my opinion. And you guys can shred it or whatever you want to do. But this is my opinion on why it doesn't work or it does work. And so that's why I think he was willing to share when things didn't work out and when they did work out. It was really cool to hear a guy like that. But Ben Shapiro is kind of the modern, not I wouldn't say he's like Rush Limbaugh, but Ben Shapiro at the Daily Wire, he's pretty much the influential. He's kind of Rush Limbaugh-esque as far as he's the conservative voice now for people of my generation growing up. We talk about Ben Shapiro all the time. Whether you like Ben Shapiro or you hate Ben Shapiro, everybody knows who Ben Shapiro is. He is kind of like he kind of has taken the forefront in the conservative movement now that Rush is gone. And he was very honored to meet Rush. He said he met Rush a couple times, and he did a whole presentation on Rush Limbaugh and how influential Rush Limbaugh was. And he has the Daily Wire now and stuff like that. So he does his whole thing. But he was very influenced by Rush Limbaugh. And so Ben Shapiro is probably my version of that. He's more analytical, not necessarily as funny as Rush Limbaugh was, and not necessarily as wise. But as far as if something bad happens in the world or something big major event happens in the world, everybody wanted to hear, okay, here's what the liberals are saying. You can turn on the TV and see that. Let's hear what Rush is saying. Let's hear what Rush is saying about this. If we want to know what the conservatives are thinking, tune into the radio. Let's hear what Rush is saying. He's the guy that's leading the kind of conservative voice on things. And Ben Shapiro has kind of taken that role of, okay, everyone waits to see what Ben Shapiro is going to tweet or say before they know how to attack conservatives. They wait to hear what Ben Shapiro says. Same thing as Rush. Liberals have to wait until Rush says something before they know what to hate. He literally led the dialogue. Ben Shapiro does this too. They don't know what to do until Rush says something or Ben Shapiro or somebody like that says something on their show, and then they know how to take the opposite stance. So Rush will be on one end. He'll say his thing first and have his reasons for it. And then liberals automatically go to the opposite just to attack Rush, just to attack guys like Ben Shapiro. So he's been leading political discourse for the past 30 years. What are they going to do without Rush Limbaugh? What are they going to do without Donald Trump? They can't. They don't know how to function without someone telling them what they should hate.
And I think it's funny you say that because I think if you really studied Rush through the years, multiple times that he would do those things. Like you said, they wanted to go the complete opposite. He toyed with them. He would come up with something and he would come out and go this extreme or make some comment just to watch them overreact and respond to it. When he really, it was a complete satire. It was a complete made up thing. He would be all over the news. Then he would play the clips of them saying Rush Limbaugh said, and what it was a pure, just a joke. If you so, and I think Trump took from that. It was interesting. After Rush's death, there was an interview with Donald Trump that I listened to, and he had listened. I mean, I think everybody had listened to Rush Limbaugh, knew who Rush Limbaugh was. He said he'd never met Rush Limbaugh. They'd never spoken until after he announced his campaign. And I think Rush was early on saying, this is a guy, because if you know Rush and his stance, he was a conservative throughout. But he was just as tough on Republicans as he was on Democrats, because he was one of the first to come up with the rhino, the Republican in name only. And in his constant monologues were, we don't stand for what campaign as a Republican one way, and then we governed another way because we were scared to govern. He constantly said that. And I think he had a lot to do with the style and the way that Trump ran his administration. Trump said he was going to do something. He got in office and he did it. And I think partly because of Rush Limbaugh saying, guys, you've got to stand to your guns. Conservatism wins if we will stay conservative, but we don't stay conservative. We get in. We saw the whole Newt Gingrich contract with America. They didn't keep their promise. they did their contract, but then they negotiated off all kinds of things and ended up raising taxes. Again, not what they campaigned on, not the conservatism that they campaigned on. It was always compromise, which meant as Republicans, we gave in. When you compromise with a Democrat, they don't give, we give. That's a compromise.
Yeah,
that's how it has value. They hold the line. And Donald Trump didn't do that. And so they were so similar in that approach. And I think some of the rhetoric and some of the things, and obviously the media and the Democrats responded to Trump in the same way. I think we discovered through the experiment that running as president and being president with that type of rhetoric didn't work for Trump. I think if you took everything out that Trump did, minus the rhetoric, I don't know, maybe he wouldn't have gotten as much done, but I think he would have gotten reelected.
Well, so I'm happy for my personal stance on this whole thing. I'm happy that Rush Limbaugh did get to see Trump elected and that he did receive the Presidential Medal of Honor, which was a big deal before Rush Limbaugh died. And of course, that stirred up a whole thing too. But thinking about that moment for me personally kind of made me tear up a little bit, just seeing Rush's face when he got the medal. And he was just, he was older. You could tell he was about to, on his last step.
He'd been in the hospital the week before that, having received the diagnosis. He was very, very sick that night. Sick.
He was. And Melania put the thing on him, and it was just such a good moment. People will continue to talk about Rush, and people will continue to talk about Donald Trump for a very long time. It will not go away. Now, let's go back to Texas. Let's hone it in. Let's start this is where we get a little bit of humor. Okay, so in Texas, power goes out, natural gas freezes up, wind turbines freeze up, yada, yada, yada. Dan Crenshaw had a great, if people want to see my Twitter, I retweeted Dan Crenshaw. It's a very good take he had on it, the U.S. Representative from Texas in the Houston area. He's one of my guys I listen to, and I follow him a lot, but he was breaking it down. So wind turbines failed. They froze in Texas. They have been heavily subsidized in this country, and they just didn't work in Texas. Natural gas also froze. That is true. The infrastructure was not able to get people the energy they needed. But people saying that, we should switch to renewable energy, which is basically non-reliable energy. That's what I call it. I don't use the word renewable and non-renewable. I use the word reliable. So there's reliable energy, which is natural gas, fossil fuels. And then there's non-reliable energy, which is solar, wind, all that stuff. The non-reliable energy, it froze. The wind turbines froze. They're going to do that unless you want to spend a whole lot more money on that and try to fix the problem. There's always going to be something that goes wrong with the solar. If the sun's not out, you're not getting very good. If the wind's not blowing a certain day, well then boom, you're really struggling. If the wind turbines freeze or something gets clogged, boom, you're really struggling. There's a whole line of lists of things that can struggle with non-reliable energy, however you want to call it. But I tend to think along the lines of Texas just was not ready for this freeze. They did have problems with the natural gas too, but at the end of the day, they weren't ready. Countries up north states up north deal with this stuff all the time. Texas being on their own power grid, being kind of supervised by ERCOT or whatever. ERCOT controls 90% of the Texas power. That's a name that's been thrown out a lot by Democrats. It's blame ERCOT, blame ERCOT. The thing is, it wouldn't even have mattered if people had their less regulations on natural gas, less red tape, so they could keep churning out energy. There's a reason a nuclear power plant in Houston shut down because of safety, because temperatures were too low. So they had to shut down the nuclear power plant. Now, the only reason they did that was because safety precautions and things like that. But how much natural gas is wasted? How much times have plants shut down or have plants have to redo things or check things because of red tape and regulations instead of just churning out energy they want to handicap natural gas, and then liberals want to blame it on natural gas, but you've handicapped it so you can't even expect it to perform to the fullest capabilities. And then they want to use wind turbines, which froze as soon as this thing started. They froze, and the power we expected from them, we didn't get. So we were really just sitting ducks at this point. So Texas wasn't ready, but to blame it on natural gas and to blame it on Republicans for wanting to use natural gas, it's just foolish. The red tape and the regulations and the state not being ready was what I tend to blame. But jumping to this whole renewable energy is not going to solve the problem. Wind turbines are going to continue to freeze. Solar panels are not going to work if it's dark outside. I mean, there's a whole plethora of problems that come up when you talk about this renewable energy sources.
Well, I think, yes. I'll give an analogy. It might be a little bit long, but I'll just start with the first thing is there are things that are good for you. And there are things that are good for you that if you have too much of them will be bad for you. Supplements, vitamins, and things like that people take. If you take too many, you overdose and your body will have a bad reaction. Regulations, there is a need for some oversight of a lot of different businesses because there is abuse. We know in our history, if we study our history, labor abuse and price control abuse. So there needs to be some guidelines. I get that, but I can relate to, I spent 25 years in the banking industry. I know by the time I ended being in management and banking that we spent probably of our managerial planning staff time, maybe 60 to 70% of our time responding, preparing for, or dealing with regulatory issues. We had to have internal audits. We had to have an external audit. Those are by accounting firms or internal auditing staff. Then you had to have exams, both from federal and state, or depending on where you were, you had the Federal Reserve Bank had their examiners, then the regulatory system had theirs. There were two types. You had a compliance exam, then you had a safety soundness exam. These things were ongoing and in preparation. And then you had new regulations and new guidelines coming out for BSA to deal with, all the things through terrorism and identification, customer identity fraud, all these things. So we spent a lot of time, a lot of resources. You had to pay for every one of those exams and every one of those audits. Someone had to pay the companies to come do those. You have to pay the state to do the audits. You have to have a staff that responds to those audits, and prepares for those audits, gathers the information for those audits. You have to track things. Anyway, there's a lot of work there just to be in compliance with all of the rules. Then they set guidelines that minimize the ability for you to make a profit. So you're spending more money, so there cuts into your margin. Then you have guidelines that restrict the ability for you to make money. Well, relate that to the energy business. They have deregulation. They come in, they're subsidizing renewable energy. So now they're getting extra money to not be profitable because they're not. And so they have that. And then you have the ability to carry less of the base load, so you have less revenue stream. So because they said over 30% had to be renewable, so now you're only dealing with 70% of the base load. So you have less customers, less revenue, and then there's no contingencies put in place to say, okay, we understand that if you're going to spend to take up that gap of 30% in case it's not working, or to put some type of reserve or some mechanism in place to react to a disruption, because now you're asking the for-profit companies to invest, and they have shareholders, in putting back in place the infrastructure to respond. And you say, why? Well, they should. They're providing a service. They need to be able to be. Well, there's regulations, there's rules, there's things that they have to follow. The Public Utility Commission comes in and says, you can only have rates of this much. You can't charge more for this. You can't charge or pass along that fee for that. And so they're not able to put back anything to put into the system, to build in the system, the infrastructure to do that. Wind turbines can work in cold weather. They're known to work. They're used in cold climates. But whoever's in charge, whoever's doing that, or for whatever reason, the people running them, it wasn't cost effective for them in South Texas to put in those safeguards. And now it happened and they didn't work. So it all comes back to you put these strangleholds on businesses, and then you want to turn around and point at them and say it's their fault. No, their job was to make money for their shareholders, but you have put restrictions on them that prevent them from doing that and meeting all of the needs. So there's so much blame to go around, but it comes into that you have too much oversight, too much regulation by people that don't understand what it is. They're politicizing something. Free market works. Free market has always worked. You need to let these companies go out and do the business that they do. They know the business, and they need to be able to prepare and have the flexibility to do that and regulate the big picture, not the minutia. Do not get into their everyday business. They've got to be able to, you say the word profit in front of some of these extreme progressives. They have coronaries.
Oh, it freaks them out. Yeah, you're right. Exalt that, and I'm glad you summed it up and used your banking analogy, because I think that's a good point with the regulations. Dan Crenshaw has been all over this, as I said earlier before you started. He's been answering every question, really hitting the ground running. And I guess if people are expecting something out of Republican leadership, that would be probably what Dan Crenshaw is doing on the ground, answering these questions and really trying to figure out what's going on. But basically, he sums it up. He says, number one, it's a once in a century weather event. California has constant energy problems and high prices. Number two, the reason for blackouts is complex. But in summary, Texas took too many lessons from California and over-subsidized renewable energies. They did. They've spent a lot of money on renewables and those wind turbines and things like that. And they pushed out. They've constantly been pushing out. People think, oh, red state, there's no way. Yes way. There's a lot of laws and stuff in place, like you were just mentioning. They're pushing this stuff out. They pushed out baseload energy like natural gas. And also, to kind of bottom line this, fossil fuels are the only thing that saved us. They are base load energy, which means they were already ready to go. They would have been fine. If we were even more reliant on wind turbines that froze, the outages would have been much worse. So yes, the outages were terrible. Here's where I kind of want to point to the hypocrisy now of it all. We've established that base load natural gas wasn't the problem. Wind turbines weren't completely the problem, but they still were a problem. And you have to find something, you have to find a way to move forward from this. And Texas just needs to be ready. Whatever it is, they need to be ready for it next time. But talking about what's still going on, it's funny. So Ted Cruz is getting a lot of heat in the news now because he took his daughters to Cancun because he wanted them to be in Mexico with family so they could be safe. And now I joked about it. I said, hey, Ted, can you take me with you? I'd love to go to Cancun right now. And now he's getting a lot of heat because he took his daughters to Cancun. And now he's back, mind you. He came back in Thursday. He's back in Texas. It was a quick trip, but he got a lot of heat for going to Cancun for his kids, whatever. Now he's back. Ted Cruz makes himself an easy target, yada, 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 whatever. But now he's back. He gets so much heat. He gets so much media coverage for taking his kids to Cancun out of harm's way, which, by the way, this is what Michael Berry said on his new radio show today, 740. Michael Berry, the local Houston radio guy, he was saying that I don't give a crap what politicians do on their free time. I really don't. I don't care what they do with their family. I don't care what they do with their personal lives. Let's stop worrying about that. The liberals have done a good job of guilting us into thinking that we need to like our politicians and really just relate to them as people, when in reality, we just want to make sure they're doing a good job and that we vote for the policies we support. That's it. We don't have to like these guys. We don't have to agree with what they do on the weekends or, what they do in their spare time with their family. All we have to do is vote on the policies we like. People have a hard time compartmentalizing things in this world. They want everything to kind of go align with their worldview. And if it doesn't, then they freak out. So what I'm saying is people need to get over themselves and people need to realize that people are going to make mistakes. But here's a mistake you can't forgive. And it seems like it has been forgiven, which is so crazy to me. So Ted Cruz goes on vacation with his family. Boom. It's an outrage. Governor Cuomo in New York literally killed like 40,000 old people in nursing homes, treated them like crap during COVID, basically did not take care of the nursing homes. And a lot of old people died in New York. That got tremendously less coverage. That has been getting less coverage than Ted Cruz going to Cancun. Cruz going to Cancun with his daughters has gotten more coverage than Governor Cuomo killing old people in nursing homes. I know I phrased it extreme, but you get my point. How crazy of a time it is that they literally, if the news was doing their job, wouldn't they cover Governor Cuomo and the scandal? I mean, Republicans in New York are filing articles of impeachment against Governor Cuomo. That happened last night. Why is that not news? Why is that not everywhere? The fact that the governor of one of the largest states in the union, population-wise, it's up there. It's like third largest. Why is it not getting the media coverage it should when you have the governor of New York doing such a thing? Thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, it's ridiculous to see the hypocrisy, but that's something that you're not wrong. I guess I've just grown to expect that that's the way it's going to be.
But we have to point it out, or no one's going to talk about it.
You have to point it out, and it's great. I think it needs to be said more and more. I don't know that I don't know. I just say I don't know. It's ridiculous. We spend so much time in America focusing on the minor, and we allow all these horrific things to go unchecked. And you could spend day after day pointing out the hypocrisy and the things that are happening that are uncovered by the leftist news media. I mean, it's just that they're not going to talk about it. You can look at the whole presidential campaign and Joe Biden and everything that was left. Where's the coverage? Where's the outrage on Hunter Biden? I know
where's Joe Biden? Where's Joe Biden?
Where is all of that? What if Trump had responded to Texas the way the Biden administration has responded to Texas? We haven't heard a word. We haven't heard a word. People are down here. Millions of people are in the cold without. I mean, it's a third world country. When you drive around, there's no power, there's no gas.
It was the past few days.
There's no gas line. I mean, there's just gas stations are without gas. If they have electricity, if they don't have electricity, you can't get the gas. You go to grocery stores, you can drive around to any grocery store anywhere around Houston. There's no meat, there's no bread, there's no milk, there's no eggs, there's no, they're not getting restocked. There's nothing on the shelves. It doesn't take long for society to collapse, but yet there is no word at all from Washington.
Here's my point I'm trying to make. If Trump was still president and he was responding like this, no, actually, it doesn't even matter. Trump could be responding. Texas being as unprepared as they were would be his fault. Would be his fault 100% that Texas froze and power was out. It would 100% be blamed on Trump. Biden gets a pass for some reason. Going over to the Andrew Cuomo thing, the Governor Cuomo, if this was Ron DeSantis in Florida or Greg Abbott in Texas, I mean, think about this for a minute. Think about it. If this was Greg Abbott in Texas or Ron DeSantis in Florida, and they were being put on trial and about to have articles of impeachment filed against Greg Abbott or Ron DeSantis, how would that not be news? Would that not be news?
It would be wall-to-wall news. It would be covered constantly.
Did you even know about this, that they were trying to impeach Cuomo?
Yeah, I heard last night that they had filed. They put a committee together to start doing the thing. They're not ready to write the articles. They're actually going to do an investigation. Unlike the Congress of the United States, they're actually putting a committee together with 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and they're actually going to do an investigation and gather and talk to witnesses, unlike the Congress of the United States, who just voted to impeach the president with no witnesses, no information, no hearings, none, zero talking to anyone.
But if you turn on the news, it's just Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz goes to Cancun. That's the headline.
I saw it on my Fox app. So yes, I didn't hear it from mainstream media.
No, you didn't hear it at all. You didn't hear it from anybody. I was so taken back by that. It was crazy. But listen, Texas wasn't ready. That's what we're kind of getting at. The president hasn't done anything. The media bias is still a thing as far as whatever you want to say about that. We get all that. Those are all things we kind of know. We knew these things, but there's even more craziness to this now, because this just morning I was reading something about a Congress person in Irvine, Texas, a Democrat in Irvine, Texas, Terry Meza. I was looking this up today. So there was an attack on someone's house in Irvine. That the person shot the burglar, stopped him, whatever. Well, now the Democrat representative in Irvine wants to say that it should be illegal for someone to have guns in their own house and shoot a burglar. If they would have just let the burglar rob them peacefully, then there would be no problem. The burglar only has weapons for safety precautions. The homeowner should not have weapons. The homeowner should not sue people. The homeowner should not shoot people. And so now there's a law, there's a bill trying to be written in Irvine, Texas by Democrat Terry Meza, saying that that homeowners should not be able to defend themselves, that it should be illegal if a homeowner shoots somebody in Texas that's robbing them. I don't know how it's going to play in Texas, but this is who we're dealing with. These are the type of Democrats. We shouldn't hurt the burglars for robbing us. That's against the rules. They only want to rob you because they don't have things and they need things. We shouldn't shoot them because they're robbing us. We should be nice and considerate. Meanwhile, if the homeowner gets shot, I bet this person doesn't bat an eye about that. Oh, well, it happens. Someone got robbed and got shot. Oh, well, they're trying to minimize the damage, I guess, of life, but they don't give a shit about your things. Or meanwhile, these are the same people walking around with armed guards and security and things like that. So to me, it's just, when I was reading that, I was like, holy crap, this is the dumbest thing I've scrolled across in a long time. But yeah, so you can't defend yourself anymore with guns because you might hurt the robber's feelings or you might escalate the situation. Just let them rob you, Dad. I don't care if it's your money or your social security number or debit card. Just let it happen. Just let it happen. Let them bend over, let them take you, because that's the nice Democrat thing to do.
Well, if I was compassionate, I'd be concerned about their life. And, I have white privilege and I have things and they don't. And it's because of their life, because how they were raised or whoever it is. It could be, I'm not saying it has to be a minority. It could be a poor white person, but they obviously, clearly, I should be compassionate and thoughtful of their needs. And surely there's a reason that they're robbing me, breaking into my home with a weapon or with not a weapon. And if I was a compassionate person, I would just give them what I have.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with America. We're just not compassionate.
It's called, the bill is called HB 196 to repeal the Castle Doctrine, which allows homeowners to use deadly force against an armed intruder who breaks into their home. So that's the one she wants to repeal. It's called the Castle Doctrine. You can look it up. It's called HB 196. Terry Meza, a Democrat from Irvine, Texas, she wants to repeal that. Now that I got all the facts right, I just wanted to double check myself because I'm not making this up. This is true. This is the real thing that they want to repeal. Her reasoning for it was because she feels like it wouldn't be as violent if the homeowner didn't have a gun. If only one side had a gun, and the burglars will have the gun. If only they had a gun, then it wouldn't be as violent. They would be able to steal things peacefully, and they'd be able to exit the house, and there wouldn't be a problem. That's basically her whole thought process. I mean, people think like that. People really think like that.
Yeah. And I say that, I was being sarcastic. America is one of the most giving countries per capita. The amount of charitable contributions and things that we do per person is greater than any other nation on this earth. But yet you talk to a liberal, and they say that, well, we need to be more compassionate. If we have things, we just give them. I would say that I'm not worried about that because it's unconstitutional, but I worry about, we were all so excited because Donald Trump had put so many conservative judges on the bench, but it appears that our Supreme Court in regular conservative process, just what we talked about with Rush Limbaugh earlier, they're conservatives, but they're so worried that they're going to have the perception of being uncaring, of unkind, and the threats. And again, I use the word threats from the left about packing the court, about doing the things that they're going to do. So now what the Supreme Court has decided to do is to say, we're just going to remain silent on these controversial conservative issues so that we don't have to use our conservative voice, because we want to be compassionate as defined by the progressives and the Democratic Party. So again, the Democrats make threats, they make accusations, and as per our history as conservatives, they decide to say, well, we're going to give in to get along because we don't want to be seen as uncompassionate. So our Supreme Court that we fought so hard to get a conservative base, I say that constitutional conservative, a person that believes in the Constitution.
Where have they been? Where have the constitutional people been?
Under the Second Amendment, that you have the right to defend your property. It says property. That you have the right to defend your property and own a gun to do so. Now might not even stand in the Supreme Court because they don't want to be seen as being harsh, and they're scared of the threat against them from the conservative, from the liberals, from the progressives.
Yeah, it's funny to me that the liberals all of a sudden want to be concerned with history. They're literally the party of slavery, the party of the KKK, the party of Jim Crow. But we're not supposed to worry about that history. We're supposed to think that, oh, that history is history. Let's get past that. The party of segregation. Oh, and they're also the party of abortions. They don't care about the Planned Parenthood and abortions. I mean, who's really going to be on the wrong side of history here? I mean, let's really look back. Let's look back at what all the Democrats have done and say, oh, let's talk about history. But no, I mean, you're a history teacher. You know more than I do. But I mean, it's funny. They want to lecture you about, oh, don't be on the wrong side of history. That was the thing the House managers in the impeachment trial, they kept saying, Republicans in the Senate, you don't want to be on the wrong side of history in this. I'm sorry. Has that ever stopped Democrats from being on the wrong side of history? Throughout time, they've been on the wrong side of history.
They can rewrite history. Those Democrats that did that were actually Republicans.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny now because Democrats now are trying to erase the old Democrat history and try to destroy statues of other Democrats while trying to get you to vote for more Democrats. It's a whole convoluted thing. I could get into their logic. Don't those Democrats were bad. These Democrats are good. We've changed. We promise. We don't like slavery. We just want you to be dependent on us and, welfare and social oh, here's another stimulus, by the way. Shut up and take your stimulus. Oh, we'll pay off your student loans. Here you go. I mean, hey, listen, I like free stuff, but come on, at some point you got to look what a bribe is. A bribe. That's what this is. It's a bribe. It's trying to get you dependent on the government. Ignore all the bad things we've done in the past. But then they want to lecture you on morals and things like that. It's like, no, you're the party of abortions. You're the party of slavery. Like, you've done some pretty bad things, Democrats. Why are we getting lectured on history lessons from them? They're not the best history teachers, by the way. Democrats, they tend to kind of leave out some things, whitewash them, as you would say.
Yeah.
But I
Unbelievable.
guess we'll leave it there. That's a good point. All right. So thanks. You shared some knowledge. I like that. The banking analogy you made. Yeah. So yeah, it is what it is. There's going to be regulations. There's going to be this thing called profit. People get scared of that word, but it is true. Texas, hold on, hang in there. We still love you. The government kind of screwed us up a little bit, but hey, let's not get rid of natural gas. Let's not freak out. Let's not reinvent the wheel, as someone said on Fox News. Listen, fossil fuels have worked for a very long time. They're going to continue to work. Let's not scrape it all together. Let's plan better. Let's come together. That's what we should do. But instead, of course, as soon as it happens, red state without power, Texas is hurting. Let's whatever. That's where I stand on it. It's kind of stupid, but that's how it is. RIP Rush Limbaugh, and talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye.